friends, and welcome to Butterfly Meadows Home and Farm. I'm Dorinda. Today we are going to be making raisin bread in the bread machine. Making raisin bread in the bread machine is a lot like making white bread or any other kind of bread in the bread machine. There's not a lot of difference. The only difference is you're going to add some extra ingredients, and of course, you have to put the raisins in at a certain point. So I have my ingredients here. We have a bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour. I'm using a bread flour, and you're going to need some salt, some sugar, some liquid, whether it be milk or water. I'm using milk. You're going to need your yeast, and you're going to need some raisins and some cinnamon, and I have butter. You can also use canola oil, cooking oil if you want to use oil. I'm going to be using butter. And of course you'll need something to measure everything with. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our liquid ingredients into our bread pan with the beater in place. And we are going to need 1 cup of milk. So we're going to get 1 cup of milk. And we're going to need a few more tablespoons of milk or water, but right now we're going to start out with 1 cup. And then we are going to put in our butter. Now we need 2 tablespoons of butter, and if you're using stick butter, they usually have it marked on here. It's 8 tablespoons in a stick, and they'll usually have it marked, and this one does. And so I'm going to get 2 tablespoons of butter, and I've had this out of the refrigerator so that it is a little soft. That just helps it to mix up better. And I'm just going to cut it into little pieces, let it fall into my milk. Now if you forgot to bring your butter out to get it a little soft, you can certainly melt it if you want to in the microwave or whatever you want to do, or just cut it up really fine, and the bread machine should be able to mix it in. You just don't want to put it in one big chunk. You definitely want to cut it up into pieces. All right, and the next thing we're going to add is our flour. And we are going to put 3 cups of flour, and we are going to put it on top of our milk to make a little floating bed of flour. And try not to make a mess like me. My container's a little full. I'm kind of making a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. So there is 3 cups of flour. I'm just going to take the knife and just dust it around so I have this little floating bed of flour there. And on top of that, let me put the lid on my flour. So on top of that, I'm going to add my salt, and I need 1 teaspoon of salt. And this is a teaspoon. I'm going to put that in one corner. Now I need 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I have a 2 tablespoon measuring spoon here. And this is just white sugar. I'm going to put that in a corner. So we put our ingredients in timeout, right? In corners. Okay, we're going to need 2½ teaspoons of yeast. If you are buying yeast in the little packets, then that would be 1 packet. I think 1 packet is 2 1/4. So it would be 1 packet of yeast. There's 1. 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. And we are going to want 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And if you like a lot of cinnamon, you can certainly add more. I am going to have kind of a rounded teaspoon, so that's really more than a teaspoon of cinnamon. But it calls for 1 teaspoon. Now we are also going to add a cup of raisins, but we're not going to add those yet. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our pan in our bread machine. And I'm going to bring the camera down here before I turn this on so I can show you what to look for when your bread starts to mix. I almost forgot. The raisins can go in this little fruit and nut dispenser. If your bread machine has one, it's usually in the top, and you can put your raisins in there, and when it's time to put them in, then it will just open up and spit them out into the pan. I'm not going to use that this time because I want to be able to show you that you don't have to have a fruit and nut dispenser. We are going to set a timer, and then when it's time, we're going to come and add our raisins manually. So we are going to choose on the bread maker, we are going to choose the white bread setting, which is setting number 1. We are going to choose the 2-pound loaf size, and we are going to, oops, hit the wrong button, and then we are going to choose dark color. Now I may take this out before the entire time is up since I chose dark, but I believe I want the dark color on my raisin bread, and we can look at it as it's baking and take it out a little sooner if it appears to be getting too dark. So we have our 2-pound loaf size. I have my loaf color set to dark, and we are going to hit start. We have our pan attached, and I want to show you some things as it starts to mix up. And it looks a little dry to me at the moment. So what I am going to do is I'm going to add milk, 2 tablespoons at a time. Just let it mix for a minute. And I am using butter, and that's going to take a minute. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more tablespoons. And I knew from the beginning I was going to need more than 1 cup of milk, but on purpose I wanted to add it as I went because I want the consistency of my dough ball to be in a certain consistency. And I'm also using butter. If I was using oil, it would be a little more, the dough would be a little more wet. And if I had melted my butter, it would be a little more wet. But I can see chunks of butter, and I know that they are eventually going to emulsify and make the dough wetter. So this is, right here is the consistency that you normally want your dough ball to be. But because I'm going to be adding raisins in about 20 minutes, I want my dough ball to be a little bit looser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 more tablespoons of milk because I do want it to be a little bit of a softer ball than I normally would have. So we're going to let that go for about 5 minutes, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. And I just want to remind you, don't forget, if you're going to be adding your raisins by a timer, go ahead and set yourself a 20 to 22 minute timer right now so that you will know when to add your raisins. So it's been mixing for about 5 minutes, and I just wanted to show you the dough ball, how it's very sticky and a little softer than I would have if I was just making regular bread. And it's just on like a 1 minute rest, and it's going to rest for a minute. But I wanted the dough ball like this on purpose because I have tried making raisin bread before with a tighter, firmer dough ball, and all of the raisins just want to stick to the outside and not mix in. So you want your dough ball to be a little softer, and the way you do that is just add a couple of more tablespoons of your liquid. While the dough is mixing and I have my 20-minute timer set, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the raisins or the fruit that you might be adding. So if your raisins are particularly dry and maybe a little hard, it is okay to go ahead and soak them in some water to soften them up. Put some warm water on them, which I am thinking I'm probably going to do with these. You just want to make sure that you squeeze the excess water out before you put it in your bread, because that's adding more liquid to your dough. And also, there are some other things that you can do to help the raisins distribute, and that is you can dust them, like shake them up in some flour, like to coat them with flour so that they don't stick together. And I'll go ahead and probably show you how I'm going to do that. But first, I'm going to put some warm water on these raisins and let them set for just a minute or two to soften up. So I put my raisins in some warm water and I've let them set for a minute because my raisins were kind of hard. And here in this bowl, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of spoons of flour. Now you're going to want to get as much of the water off of these raisins as possible, and you can do that however you choose. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze it out with my hand, and I'm going to put the raisins into this bowl here with this flour. See, we don't want to add all that extra water. I just wanted to soften the raisins because they were dry and hard, and I didn't want to put those dry, hard raisins in my bread. So now I have these raisins in this bowl of flour. I'm just going to toss them around. To coat them with the flour. I might could have got by with 1 spoon of flour. Looks like I have a lot of extra flour here. But as you can see, the raisins are all coated with the flour. This will keep them from sticking together when we add them in. I've got about 10 minutes or so to go before it's time to add them in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get another bowl, and I'm going to get these out of this extra flour, because I don't want to add all that extra flour into my dough ball either. My 20-minute timer has gone off, and we can add our raisins now. We can add the raisins now. 20 to 25 minutes. It doesn't have to be exact, but we can go ahead and add our raisins that we have dusted with flour. So I'm just going to add these in. Come over here so maybe you can see a little better. And I'm just going to add a few at a time. And it just mixes those raisins right in. So you can see how the raisins are just mixing right into that dough ball. Okay, I just want to show you, this is still on the first ferment. If you can see this, see ferment 1, and see how much it has risen. Now, I just wanted to show you so you'll know it's normal. The beater will come on when this ferment is completed. I think probably at about 145. It's at 148. And it'll knock that down and then it'll ferment again. But I just wanted to show you what it looks like as we are moving along so that you will know that yours is progressing normally. So the beater just now completed the knockdown and it is on ferment 3. And I just wanted to show you, I am going to go ahead, since I know it's on ferment 3, there's not going to be any more dough beating. I am going to go ahead and take out, if I can, my paddle. So I'm going to go ahead and get the paddle out, and I'll just put my dough ball, put it back down kind of. And now I won't have that big hole in my bread. So if you can catch your bread, your dough, when it gets on the last ferment right before the bake, then you know you are safe to take the paddle out. You don't want to wait until the bread has already started to rise again, because then your bread will come out dense if you interrupt that final rise. I can't believe it's already done, but it is. There's 4 minutes left, but like I said, I had this on the dark setting and I knew it might be a little too dark. It rose up really big, which is not always a good thing, but sometimes it happens. I'm going to put it on this wire rack here. Just wanted to show you how it rose way above the pan. And I'm not a big fan of that, but it does happen sometimes, and you're going to want to get it out of the pan as quickly as possible and use some good oven mitts. Because it does have raisins in it, you might find it sticks a little, but this one doesn't seem to be stuck at all. It's very hot. Oh, perfect color. Perfect color. I know you probably can't hear that, but it's nice and hollow sounding. Oh, it smells delicious. Now all we got to do is let this cool a few minutes, and then we'll cut into it and see how it looks on the inside. Isn't that just beautiful? Beautiful raisin bread. So while we have our raisin bread here cooling on a wire rack, I wanted to show you guys how to make a glaze to go on top of it. Now, some people like a glaze on top of their raisin bread and others don't. So you can make this glaze or you can leave it off. And I have in here a little more than a cup of powdered sugar. And to that, I am going to add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. And what the cornstarch is going to do, it's going to help the glaze from melting and just turning into a complete liquid on the bread. Just kind of stabilizes it a little bit. And I'm going to add to my powdered sugar about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then we're going to add some milk. And you want to add your milk really slowly, because it really does not take much. And I'm just going to pour it into my spoon here. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons. Then I'm going to see how that stirs. It'll just melt that sugar down. And we'll see if we need some more. We'll probably need just a little more. Just give it time to melt. See how that little bit of milk melted all that sugar. I'm just going to add just about a half a tablespoon. See what we get, because I don't want it to be too thin. And stir that up really good. And there we have a wonderful glaze. Now, as far as when to put the glaze on your bread, that is completely up to you. You can put it on the side and allow people to put the glaze on the bread as they want to. You can glaze the whole loaf before you slice it. You can glaze it after you slice it. It's completely up to you. Now, you can use any serrated knife to slice your raisin bread. I have a bread slicer here. And sometimes you can find these at thrift stores. If not, you can find them on Amazon. Be sure and check out my Amazon link below. And today I'm going to use the electric knife, but you can use any serrated knife. It doesn't have to be an electric knife. And as I always say, start at the front when slicing your bread, the tilted side up. That will help keep your loaves, your slices more even. So we have our bread all sliced, and we're just going to take a look at what it looks like on the inside. Just look at that beautiful crumb, the beautiful texture. It's just perfect. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to take this end piece, because everybody knows the end piece is the best piece, right? And I'm going to put some glaze on it, and then we'll give it a taste. That is absolutely perfect raisin bread. I'm so glad you stopped by today to make raisin bread with me in the bread machine. I hope you'll try it. I hope you'll enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the little bell and share this with your friends to help me grow my channel. I appreciate you as a viewer more than you'll ever know. God bless. Bye-bye.